Hey guys! So welcome to Unit 7, the unit on development. Developmental psychology. A branch of psychology that studies physical, cognitive, and social change throughout the lifespan. Three major issues in developmental psychology are nature and nurture. How does our genetic inheritance interact with our experiences to affect our development? Continuity and stages. Which parts of development are gradual and continuous, and which parts change abruptly in separate stages? And then 3, stability and change. Which of our traits persist through life? How do we change as we age? Prenatal development and the newborn. Zygotes, the fertilized egg, enters a 2-week period of rapid cell division. It develops into the embryo, which is the developing human organism, from 2 weeks through the second month, and then the fetus, the developing human organism from 9 weeks after conception to birth. Newborns prefer their mother's voice to their father's immediately after birth. Why? Because they spent 9 months inside of mom, and so they love mom's voice. Teratogens, agents such as chemicals and viruses that can reach the embryo or fetus during prenatal development and cause harm. Fetal alcohol syndrome. Physical and cognitive abnormalities in children caused by a pregnant woman's heavy drinking. Symptoms include facial misproportions. Rooting reflex. Turn towards the touch, open their mouth, root for nipple. Habituation. Decreasing responsiveness with repeated stimulation. Newborns become bored with repeated stimulus but renew their attention to a slightly different stimulus, which proves they know what is new. Infancy and childhood physical development. Maturation, biological growth process that enables orderly changes in behavior, relatively uninfluenced by experiences, sets the course for development while experience adjusts it. For example, cortical neurons grow fast. You have most of your brain cells by 15 months. Your brain growth is Where is brain growth most rapid from ages 3 to 6 in the frontal lobes? What are the last areas of the brain to develop? Association areas. When is the average age of people's earliest memories? 4 to 5 years. Thinking and language. Language are spoken, written, or signed words and the ways we combine them to communicate meaning. Language structure. Phonemes are the smallest distinctive sound unit. For example, b, at in the word bat. The phonemes are the smallest distinctive sound unit, but they can also be sh, t. Sh is made up of 2 letters, but it's only one sound. Morphemes are the smallest unit that carries meaning, a word or part of word, prefix. For example, preview or gentle. Grammar, a system of rules that enables us to communicate with and understand others. What is receptive language? Recognizing differences in speech sounds, and babies are under 4 months when they understand it. Productive language is making words. The babbling stage is 4 to 10 months, and it goes from goo sort of stages to ma. But at the babbling stage, they don't necessarily know what mama means. They just say it. One word stage is 1 to 2 years, mostly using one words. 2-word stage is 2 years. Telegraphic speech uses mostly nouns and verbs. So they mostly would say something like want cookies. They don't necessarily say I want the cookies or they want the cookies, and they wouldn't know like nuances of speech that, babies don't know. Noam Chomsky believed about language development that there isn't a universal grammar that humans are predisposed to learn. Children who have not been exposed to any speaking language before their critical period ends can't learn languages. Aphasia is the impairment of languages, usually caused by left hemisphere damage either to the Broca's, which is the speaking area, or the Wernicke's area, which is the understanding area. The Broca's area controls language expression, whereas the Wernicke's area controls language reception. Linguistic determinism. Worf's hypothesis that language determines the way we think. For example, a different sense of self in different language. The most famous developmental psychologist is Jean Piaget. Cognition is all the mental activities associated with thinking, knowing, remembering, and communicating. According to Piaget, the driving force behind our intellectual progression is an unceasing struggle to make sense of our experiences. Schemas are a concept or framework that organizes and interprets information. Assimilate is interpreting new experiences in terms of our existing schema, for example, adding. Accommodate, adapting our current schema or understanding to incorporate new information for like going to school and going to college. Piaget's stages of cognitive development. Sensory motor stage, looking at stimuli that interest them and constantly moving, which the age range for that is birth to 2 years. And then lacking object permanence, which is aware that things continue to exist when not perceived. Like when you do hide and seek with the baby, the reason that they love it so much is because they don't know that you're coming back. The second stage is the pre-operational stage, in which the child learns to use language but doesn't comprehend concrete logic, which is during the age ranges of 2 to 7 years old. Conservation is the principle that properties such as mass, volume, and number remain the same despite changes in the forms of objects. For example, if you put 5 quarters in a row in front of you, there are 5 quarters. If you move them far away from each other, there are still 5 quarters, but a child in this age range might assume that there are more than 5 quarters. Conservation, the principle that properties such as mass, I just read that, my bad. Symbolic thinking, representing things with words and images. Egocentrism, the inability of symbolic thinking to take another's point of view. The inability of children or somebody to take another's point of view. Collective monologues, animism, artificialism. Theory of mind, people's ideas about their own and others' mental states. About their feelings, perceptions, and thoughts, and the behaviors these might predict. Stage 3, concrete operational stage. Children gain mental operations that allow them to think logically about concrete events, which is the age range of 7 to 12 years. And then formal operational stage. Children begin to think about abstract concepts, which is the age range from 12 years and older. Vygotsky's scaffolding theory of cognitive development. According to Vygotsky, why do children increasingly think in words and use words to solve problems? By age 7, they are initializing their culture's language. What's the difference between Piaget's and Vygotsky's emphasis on children's cognitive development? The child's mind grows through interaction with social environment, not physical. Zone of proximal development. Children learn best by interacting with others. Children will not likely move on to the next level of understanding without help from peers or role models. Peer/role model influence helps the child move through the developing zone to the next level of understanding. Infancy and childhood. Stranger anxiety. The fear of strangers that infants commonly display, beginning by about 8 months of age. Attachment. An emotional tie with another person, shown in young persons by their seeking closeness to the caregiver and showing distress on separation. Harry Harlow's study of attachment on monkeys it concluded that baby monkeys value comfort over nourishment. They had they did this experiment where they separated baby monkeys from their mothers, and then they gave them these wire monkey mothers that provided food. They were just like statues, and one of them was just bare wires that had food, and the other one had like a heating pad inside of it and was covered with stuffing. And the monkeys that had the heating pad and the stuffing were a lot happier and uh, did better than the ones that just had the food. Besides body contact, what else is important in forming an attachment? Food and availability. The critical period. By age 7, most are unable to master any language. Closes in at age 2 to 3, but after puberty, which is ages 11 through 12, it's impossible. Lorenz's imprinting, the process by which certain animals form strong attachments during an early life critical period. Do human children imprint? Not really. Mary Ainsworth's types of attachments. We have secure attachment and insecure attachment. Secure attachment is happy with mother to explore. Insecure attachment, anxiety or avoidance of trusting relationships. Temperament, a person's characteristic emotional reactivity and intensity. Erickson's basic trust, a sense that the world is predictable and trustworthy, formed during infancy by appropriate experiences with responsive caregivers. 2 different effects on a child if they are deprived of attachment can be lower intelligence and increased anxiety. Abuse breeds abuse, hypersensitivity, and detaching is a process, not an event. Self-concept. All our thoughts and feelings about ourselves and in answer to the question, who am I? What is the difference between self-concept and self-esteem? How they feel about self-esteem is how they feel about who they are, and then self-concept is just who they think they are. Different kinds of parenting styles. Authoritarian is imposing rules and expecting obedience. Permissive submits to child's desires, makes few demands, and uses little punishment. Authoritative is both demanding and responsive. Exert control by setting rules and enforcing them, but explain reasons for rules, encourage open discussions when making rules, and allows exceptions. And according to Baumrind, parents of children with high self-esteem tend to be authoritative. Gender development. Gender is the socially constructed rules and characteristics by which a culture defines male and female. The difference between sex and gender. Sex is a biological status defined by chromosomes and anatomy. The gender of male tends to be more aggressive, and the power differences people perceive between genders is that men get most things more than women. What did Carol Gilligan find about gender and social connectedness? Females are more interdependent, and females tend to prefer working with people. Gender roles are a set of expected behaviors for males or females. A role is a set of expectations or norms about a social position, defining how those in the position ought to behave. The expected gender roles of men versus women in the U.S. Men are expected to be in charge and go to work, and women are expected to be submissive and stay at home. But that's not the same in other cultures, and it isn't even the same necessarily now. Gender identity is our sense of being male or female. Social learning theory is the theory that we learn social behavior by observing and imitating and by being rewarded or punished. For example, big boys don't cry. Gender typing is the acquisition of a traditional masculine or feminine role. Transgender is an umbrella term describing people whose gender identity or expression differs from that associated with their birth sex. Parents, peers, and early experiences. What is the general conclusion about which is more influential in development, nature or nurture? Nurture. How much credit or blame? I'm not answering that question. My voice is going away. Adolescence, the transition period from childhood to adulthood, extending from puberty to independence. Physical development, puberty, the time when we mature sexually. What are the psychological effects on boys who mature early? More popular, self-assured, independent, at risk for alcohol use, delinquency, and premature sexual activity. The psychological effects on girls who mature early may start associating with older adolescents or may suffer teasing or sexual harassment. What happens to your neurons in your brain during adolescence? A selective pruning of unused neurons and connections. What lobe of the brain matures during adolescence? The frontal lobe. During early teens, what is reasoning like? Self-focused. Kohlberg's stages of moral development. In the pre-conventional morality stage, which is before age 9, the focus is self-interest. You obey rules to avoid punishment or gain concrete rewards. For example, if you save your wife, you'll be a hero. Level 2 is conventional morality, which is early adolescence. And the focus of that is upholding laws and rules to gain social approval or maintain social order. If you steal the dog, everyone will think you're a criminal. And then post-conventional morality, adolescence and beyond, actions reflect belief in basic rights and self-defined ethical principles. People have a right to live. What happens to children who learn to delay gratification? They have better self-control and end up being more successful. According to Erikson, what is the main crisis during adolescence? The psychosocial task, synthesizing past, present, and future possibilities into a clearer sense of self. And our identity is our sense of self. Our social identity is the we aspect of our self-concept, the part of our answer to who am I that comes from our group membership. Why is the first year of college such a challenge to many adolescents? They don't have a defined sense of self. Erik Erikson's psychosocial stages of development. And there's a note in here that says Erikson's stages always come up on the AP test to make sure you understand these. And as far as I know, the AP test I'm taking is actually just going to be the essay part because we have to take them at home. But still good to know. Trust versus mistrust is the age range of 0 to 1 year. If needs are dependably met, infants develop a sense of basic trust. Autonomy versus shame and doubt is 1 to 3 years old. Toddlers learn to exercise their will and do things for themselves, or they doubt their abilities. Initiative versus guilt, 3 to 6 years old. Preschoolers learn to initiate tasks and carry out plans, or they feel guilty about their efforts to be independent. Industry versus inferiority, 6 years old to puberty. Children learn the pleasure of applying themselves to tasks, or they feel inferior. Identity versus role confusion, teens to 20s. Teenagers work at refining a sense of self by testing roles and then integrating them to form a single identity, or they become confused about who they are. Intimacy versus isolation, 20s to 40s. Young adults struggle to form close relationships and to gain the capacity for intimate love, or they feel socially isolated. Generativity versus self-absorption, 40s to 60s. In middle age, people discover a sense of contributing to the world, usually through family and work, or they may feel a lack of purpose. Integrity versus despair, 60s and up. Reflecting on his or her life, an older adult may feel a sense of satisfaction or failure. Intimacy, according to Erikson, the ability to form close, loving relationships. In Western cultures, what happens to the child-parent relationship as adolescents form their identity? They grow apart. What goes hand in hand with positive parent-teen relationships? Positive peer relationships. Emerging adulthood. For some people in modern cultures, a period from late teens to mid-20s, bridging the gap between adolescence, dependence, and full independence and responsible adulthood. Oh, there's only one page left. Okay. What are the names and age ranges of 3 different types of adulthood? Early adulthood, which is ages 20 to 30, middle adulthood, which is ages 30 to 65, and late adulthood, which is ages 65 and older. Menopause is the time of natural cessation of menstruation. Strength and stamina declines as you age, but physical activity is important for older adults because exercise slows aging. And as you age, your senses become less accurate, all of them. And as you age, your immune system long-term weakens, short-term strong. So I guess it gets stronger until the mid range of your life, and then after that you start to get weaker again. And as you age, your neural processing slows down. Cross-sectional studies, a study in which people of different ages are compared with one another. Longitudinal studies, research where the same people are restudied and retested over a long period. What is terminal decline of mental abilities? In the last 3 or 4 years of life, it declines. Social clock, the culturally preferred timing of social events, such as marriage, parenthood, and retirement. Does living together before marriage lead to less divorce? No, it actually usually ends up with people getting more divorces.